welcome to another episode of 40 Minutes in the Old Testament. 40 Minutes in the Old Testament is a 1517 Podcast Network podcast. You can go to 1517.org/podcast, check out all the other podcasts that are living over there, and while you're over there, make sure you check out everything else that 1517 is doing. It's a lot of things. Got a lot of academies. Chad's busy recording a new academy. I think he just wrapped that up. It's not out yet. You can't check it out by the time this releases. But, I mean, if you've never checked out an academy, there's a lot to choose from. So take an academy course while you get ready for Chad's new one to drop. You could take another one from Chad. Chad's got another one there. You take something else. Find one that interests you. There's a lot of different topics that are covered there. It's free. Go educate yourself with the 1517 Academy. Also, while you're there and you're like, man, this is pretty high production. This is pretty good. How did I not pay anything for this? Well, the answer to that is, of course, that donate link in the right-hand corner. You can click on that. Become a contributor. You can support the work by becoming a one-time giver or a reoccurring giver. For those of you who have already done that, we thank you very much. Chad, we're at the very, very end of Isaiah chapter 27. We've talked about the redemption of Israel. We had some good news. It's the standard fare, as it were, about what God's going to do. And hey, are you broken down, lowly, desperate, and have only one hope? Man, I'm going to lift you up. I'm exactly what you need. Are you full of pride and arrogance and don't feel like you really need me? Well, I'm going to trample you down. And that's kind of where we ended.
Yeah, we're almost to the end, but we got a couple verses left to go, and it's going to continue the same hope for Israel of what God is going to do, except it's going to switch gears a little bit to pick up this very common prophetic theme of an Exodus, not an Exodus necessarily from Egypt, but from wherever you are. So let me read those two verses, 12 and 13, to wrap up this chapter. In that day, from the river Euphrates to the brook of Egypt, the Lord will thresh. The ESV has thresh out the grain. Could be thresh. This verb also is used for like the beating of an olive tree to facilitate the picking of olives, which I think is probably a better translation here because it goes on to say, and you will be gleaned one by one. Well, the picking up of one by one matches figs a whole lot better than it does grain. But anyway, it's an agricultural image. The Lord's going to thresh, or he's going to beat the olive trees, and you will be picked up or gleaned one by one, O people of Israel. And in that day, a great trumpet, a shofar, is the one verb that is the noun that's used here. So a big shofar will be blown. And those who were lost in the land of Assyria and those who were driven out to the land of Egypt will come and worship the Lord on the holy mountain at Jerusalem. And of course, that harkens back to the promise we encountered already in Isaiah 2, where in the latter days, the Lord is going to lift up Zion as the tallest of the mountains, and peoples from all over will stream upward to that mountain. So it's the image, Daniel talks about this too, about the stone which destroys the statue, becomes a mountain that fills the whole earth. This is then picked up by John in Revelation. The mountain where God is located is scattered throughout the scriptures as an emblem of God pulling people to himself so they can be in his presence, worship him, receive his blessings. So here you have from the river Euphrates, of course, that's in reference to the land of Assyria. And then the brook of Egypt, of course, that's in reference to Egypt. So basically, if you're positioning yourself in Israel, you're looking to the east, northeast to Assyria. You're looking to the south, the southwest to Egypt. And the message is basically wherever God's people are, east, west, north, south, then they're going to be picked up. God's going to pick them up one by one from wherever they are. And they have this great Jubilee image. So this big shofar is going to be blown. Well, when was the shofar blown? Well, one time it was blown was to announce the Jubilee, which happens every 50th year. And this is a year of release. It's a year of forgiveness. It's a year of restoration of ancestral properties. And this coincides exactly with what Jesus announced he was bringing about in his synagogue sermon in Nazareth, where he read from the scriptures, from Isaiah, in fact. And the scriptures he read is talking about this dawn of the Messianic era. And Jesus says, today the scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing. So this is the beginning of a Jubilee. and this Jubilee is the Jubilee of the Messiah. And when that happens, then God is going to bring all these people home to himself, no matter where they are. And in New Testament terms, this is, of course, Old Testament kind of imagery. In New Testament terms, it basically means that, hey, wherever you are, not only geographically, but spiritually, no matter how far gone you are, no matter what deep pit of sin that you have fallen into, whatever your Egypt, whatever your Assyria, wherever you are not too far gone from God, because through his gospel, he pulls you up from the pit, he rescues you from your own Egypt, your own Assyria, and he brings you home to himself.
Yeah, I mean, this one's hard not to sort of take as pretty eschatological, right? I mean, this sounds like the thing that you and I are still waiting for.
Yeah, that's true.
There's going to be a trumpet, and then one by one, I mean, this sounds, when Jesus talks about like sort of the last days, like, oh, got some people in the field, and got some people over here, and I'm gonna find them all, right? I'm out there finding them all, from all over the world, and yeah, this definitely sounds like that.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a typical now not yet that you have in the New Testament too, where, I mean, has the last day happened? Yes and no. In a sense, it happened already in Jesus, right?
Yep.
You have death, you have burial, you have resurrection, and you have basically the microcosm of all human history narrowed down to what happens in him. And that's why I think anyway that you have like the tombs being opened and the bodies of the saints coming out in Matthew's gospel. This weird, like, early resurrection is like, oh, it's the last day. It's time to leave the tombs. Yeah. So that's the now, and the not yet, of course, is, well, we're still in this world. We're still waiting for Christ to return and to blow the trumpet and to bring everyone to himself. So in a sense, it's happening. In a sense, it hasn't happened yet. So we're awaiting the full revelation of this.
Yeah. By the way, if you never heard a shofar be blown, which I did on Sunday, because I was at my dad's church on Sunday. It was Father's Day, and I was down there. And for as long as I can remember, they start the service by blowing a shofar.
Oh, really? Like every Sunday?
Every Sunday, for as long as I can remember.
Interesting.
And big, horn. It's horn,
like a real
animal,
real ram's horn. Yeah,
yeah. And if you know how to do it, it is loud.
I bet. I've never heard it.
It is. Oh man, Chad, you need to come experience this.
So like I'm not living up to my Old Testament calling here.
Hey, in modern churches, before, like, they'll have like a countdown clock, and it's like that's when service starts. Yeah. Not at my dad's church, man. For as long as I can remember, like when it's time for everyone to shut up and sit down and pay attention, you just get this blasting shofar. Yeah, it sits right up there on by the
Who blows
pulpit.
It?
My dad used to, but his lungs aren't as good as they used to be. So weirdly enough, my niece does.
Oh, okay.
And she's like 10, and like can belt that thing.
She's got the shofar down.
Oh yeah.
Have you ever blown one? Or you just heard it?
No, I have. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
No, I have not done that, but I do think we're going to have to.
Look at me for once, just being a little more Old Testament than Chad. Like, not only have I heard a shofar, but I've blown one.
I think we're going to have to change the format of 40 minutes now too. Like, instead of our introductory music, it's going to have to be this blast of the shofar.
There you
Everybody
go.
knows. All right,
it is a very unique sound too. It doesn't it doesn't sound like a trumpet. It's much different than that, but it is loud. It's strikingly loud for like being the horn of an animal.
Yeah,
you kind of can't believe how loud it is.
Well, makes sense. I mean, that's how you announce, right? Get everybody's attention. Cool. Well, here we have the ultimate blowing of the shofar, announcing that Jubilee. All right, I guess we'll switch gears here. We got to move into, the way this goes, listeners. We had some good news. That's awesome stuff. Well, predictably, when you have good news, guess what's going to follow it? Some Some not great news. We go from gospel to law to gospel, so kind of bouncing back and forth, which is, I know we've said this before, but it's just a reminder, never picture, like when you're reading through the prophets, minor prophets included, never picture the sequence of the chapters or the oracles, the sermons or whatever, as happening chronologically. It wasn't like, or even like Isaiah, it's toward the end of his ministry, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write all this down. It's not the way this happened. There's very little chronologically that happens. There is a structure, to be sure, but the structure is not, okay, this is what happened the first year of the prophet's ministry. This is what happened the second year of the prophet's ministry. Rather, it's a range in the way that it is, of course, to communicate a message, but that arrangement is not chronological. So here we're going to shift gears to verse 20 in chapter 28 to the Bible we're looking at has it titled "Judgment on Ephraim and Jerusalem," which is a pretty accurate way of describing what's coming up. First of all, we're going to hear about the troubles in the northern kingdom, and most of what we hear here is under the image of basically drunken stupidity. I guess that's probably the best way to put this. There's a lot of alcohol kind of imagery that occurs in these opening verses. And then toward the end of that section, we're going to switch gears, and it's going to be basically a message to the southern kingdom, to Judah, Jerusalem, saying, hey, you guys should have learned from the northern kingdom not to engage in this kind of behavior. You didn't, and so here's what's going to befall you. So I'm going to read the first 6 verses, and these are going to be addressed to Ephraim. Ephraim being one of the sons of Joseph, the biggest northern tribe in the northern kingdom, and also just a synonymous name for the northern kingdom, also known as Israel. Could also be translated woe. It kind of depends on the context as to how this Hebrew word hoy is to be translated. So or woe. Or woe to the proud crown of the drunkards of Ephraim, and the fading flower of its glorious beauty, which is on the head of the rich valley of those overcome with wine. Behold, the Lord has one. He's talking here about Syria. That's the one that's described here. The Lord has one who is mighty and strong, like a storm of hail, a destroying tempest, like a storm of mighty overflowing waters he cast down to the earth with his hand. The proud crown of the drunkards of Ephraim will be trodden underfoot, and the fading flower of its glorious beauty, which is on the head of the rich valley, will be like a first ripe fig before the summer. When someone sees it, he swallows it as soon as it's in his hand. In that day, this is verse 5, in that day the Lord of hosts, let me start that over again. In that day the Lord of hosts will be a crown of glory, and a diadem of beauty to the remnant of his people, and a spirit of justice to him who sits in judgment, and strength to those who turn back the battle at the gate. So this is, this of course, using a lot of imagery about the drunkenness. This perhaps could be literal, could also be metaphorical. Drunkenness is often used metaphorically in the scriptures to describe someone who's just staggering about in foolishness, doing things which are evil, oppressing the weak, just basically acting, well, like drunk people do, making dumb decisions, wobbling back and forth, going here, going there, and also just not paying attention to the threats that are around them. So that's why the metaphor of drunkenness is so apt here. And he calls them they wear a proud crown, and they have this fading flower of glorious beauty. So it's
shocking. So shocking that the crown is proud.
Yeah, it's just shocking that the crown is proud. Yeah. So this is Samaria. This is the northern kingdom. And if you're familiar with 1st and 2nd Kings, or followed us through that in the podcast, then you know what was happening in the northern kingdom. About the only guy who was even sort of decent up there was Jehu, and that guy was a bloodthirsty, crazy man. So the rest of the kings up there, beginning with the very first of them, Jeroboam, who built the golden calves at Dan and Bethel. Well, they were just like an idol feast up there. And so you begin to see this downward spiral of the northern kingdom. And when this is happening, we read that the Lord has one who's mighty and strong. Well, that one is the Assyrians, and so he's going to bring them in. And they're like a storm of hail, a destroying tempest, mighty overflowing waters, and they're going to sweep in, and they're going to take that proud crown of the drunkards of Ephraim, and they're going to trot it underfoot. And they're going to do this so rapidly and so completely that he has a simile where he compares it to, somebody's walking along and the very first figs are coming out. And man, there's one that is just so perfectly ripe. He picks it off the tree and he swallows it just like that. And that is a picture of how Assyria is going to come in and they're just going to swallow up the northern kingdom. So a full and a rapid judgment. Now you might think, okay, when that happens, it's all over. Well, no, because verse 5 tells us there is going to be a remnant. There always is a remnant, right? There's always going to be a remnant. And this remnant, instead of having a proud crown like the drunkards and the fading flower of glorious beauty, it's going to be the Lord of hosts who's a crown of glory and a diadem of beauty to the people. So basically, there's a switch. There's going to be a remnant who are spared, and this remnant are going to do what the whole nation should have done and put their trust in the Lord and in his strength and in his justice.
Yeah, I mean, there's the obvious contrast here. So you can have pride as your crown, or you can have the Lord as your crown. This is the great two options in Isaiah, right? Over and over again, and many other places in the Bible too. So what's it going to be? Pride or the Lord? Which of these things are you going to wear on your head? And
only two options.
I recommend the Lord.
Yeah. I recommend the Lord too. There's quite a history behind what happens to those who choose pride as the crown. Yeah, and it's not a pretty picture.
No.
So, okay, that's the first 6 verses. That's a pretty strong and pretty clear judgment against the northern kingdom. Now, you would think the southern kingdom would look at what was going on and be like, oh, man, that is not the way to go. You see what happened to those people. We don't want to be going down that road. We should learn from their lesson. And that didn't happen. We know that from history. We know that from what Isaiah is talking about as well. So begin with verse 7, read 2 or 3 verses. Prepare yourself. We have some pretty graphic image here, gross and graphic image. These also, okay, who are these also? Well, this is the southern kingdom. So he's described the northern, these also, that is those of the southern kingdom. Well, what are they like? Are they like sober-minded and following the wise ways of the Lord? No, we're going to continue with the alcohol imagery. These also reel with wine and stagger with strong drink. That's probably could be translated beer there. But either way, they reel with wine, they stagger around because they've been drinking beer or strong drink. The priest and the prophet. These isn't just kind of, your whoever. This is the people that should know what to do. God's priest, God's prophet. What do? Well, the same thing. They reel with strong drink. And they think they're swallowing wine? Oh, no, actually. They are swallowed by wine. They stagger with strong drink. They reel in vision. They stumble in giving judgment. For all tables are full of filthy vomit with no space left. Oh, well, that's quite the sight.
Yeah, the old when you think that you're you think you're drinking alcohol, but the alcohol is drinking you.
That's exactly what's happening here. Yeah, you think that you're in control of the bottle of wine or the 4th or 5th bottle of wine, or however much you've had. Oh no. The bottle is in control of you. The wine is drinking you, and the result, of course, is that you have what often happens after intoxication. You have vomit, and Isaiah want to make sure that he grosses us out by, saying all their tables are full of filthy vomit. He's painting here this gross scene to impress upon us, hey, this is what happens. Maybe literally, but certainly spiritually, when the priest and the prophets are engaging in this behavior.
The picture is like if you walked into a house, there's a party going on, you walk into a house, and everyone's plastered, everything's covered in vomit, but everyone's still drinking. And he would be like, this is a scene of insanity right here.
Yeah. Yeah, not far away from some university scenes.
Not saying that maybe you've seen this before, where you're like, hey, are you throwing up and still drinking? Is that what's happening?
Yeah. I remember what it's like to live in the dorm with a bunch of guys, and you never know what you're going to encounter with college-age guys. Things can get pretty gross. Well, here it's applied, of course, to the people who definitely should know better. Not that all the Israelites should have known better, but hey, this is the priest and the prophet. They're the ones who are reeling and staggering. So he continues on here with verse 9, saying, to whom will he teach knowledge? Now, who this he is, I'll come back to in a minute, but let me just read 9 and 10. To whom will he teach knowledge? And to whom will he explain the message? Those who are weaned from the milk, those taken from the breast. For it is precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little, there a little. This is actually, so that verse 10 that I just read about precept, precept, line, line, that's going to be repeated at verse 13. There's some, this is kind of it's funny. It's kind of a dark humor, but what's going on here is also kind of funny at the same time. So first of all, who's he talking about here? Well, there's a couple different options. So to whom will he teach knowledge, and to whom will he explain the message? So I think of the two options, we have these. One, this could be all these drunkards who plastered and vomiting everywhere are speaking to Isaiah. And so they're basically saying, to whom is he going to explain everything? And in their drunken slur. That's one possibility. The other possibility, I kind of lean this direction, although I'm not hard and fast on this, that maybe this is just Isaiah explaining who these people are, like the priest and the prophets and whoever else is staggering around in their spiritual drunkenness. Who are they going to teach knowledge to? Who are they going to explain their message to basically to babies? To those who are weaned from milk, those taken from the breast. Is that who they're going to be talking to?
That's how I've taken this, is that they're saying, okay, so here's these guys, and who exactly is going to listen to them?
Yeah, right.
I don't know if you've ever had like a really drunk person try to give you advice before, but I have. And
I have too, yes.
I haven't
like they're very open about giving advice.
Yes, and I've not taken that advice to heart, really clung to it. Those are the situations you're like, oh, okay, yeah. That's kind of how that goes.
That's kind of how that goes. So this gets even more humorous, because this verse 10 that says precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little, there a little. Actually, this is, that translation's okay, but here's how you should actually hear that. Blah, blah, this, blah, blah, that, again and again, here a little, there a little. Or as Robert Alter translates it, filth, pilth, filth, pilth, vomit, mommet, vomit, mommet, a little here, a little there. This, let me read it to you in the Hebrew. Kid, sav, latsav, kav, lakav, z'ir sham. It's a whole string of these monosyllabic words, which are probably intended either to sound like the babbling of an infant, or more fittingly, I think, the stuttering words of someone who's drunk. So when you hear verse 10, just picture a very drunk person who is trying to talk, but all the words that come out are just this person just kind of stuttering along, making no sense whatsoever. So that That would be my recommendation. In fact, it might even be better just to transliterate those words from Hebrew into English. Bah, 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 bah. That's add that with a drunken slur, and that's how verse 10 is intended to sound. So that's what these prophets and priests and others who are overcome by their foolish spiritual and maybe literal drunkenness, that's what they sound like. And this is the southern kingdom. This is where Isaiah lives and works and preaches. So what's God going to do about this? Well, he's going to, as it were, turn things around. So he picks up with verse 11 and says, "For by people of strange lips and with a foreign tongue the Lord will speak to this people, to whom he has said, this is rest, give rest to the weary, and this is repose. Yet they would not hear. And the word of the Lord will be to them," and here we have blah, 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 that precept, line, "so that they may go and fall backward and be broken and snared and taken." Okay, what's happening here? Well, first of all, he starts out, "By a people of strange lips and with a foreign tongue, the Lord will speak to his people." So this is the Assyrians are coming in. And of course, they're not speaking Hebrew. So everything that they are speaking to the Israelites is not going to make any sense. So they're going to sound, to the Israelites like that blah, 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 blah. Or as the Greeks would have said, they called all non-Greek speakers barbarians because everything that the non-Greek speakers said to the Greek speakers sounded like bar, 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 bar. So they called them barbarians. So Isaiah says, listen, God spoke to you very clearly. He said, if you want rest, this is rest, then give rest to the weary. And here's repose. And I'm offering you rest. And I'm telling you to give rest to the weary. I'm giving you a very clear word. And you won't listen to it. In fact, all you do is just sit around uttering these drunken words. And so what I'm going to do, God says, I'm going to bring in the Assyrians, this people of strange lips, and this people of a foreign tongue. And through them, I'm going to speak to you. This is going to be my word to you. But the way you're going to hear this word is blah, 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 precept, line, here a little, there a little. And the result will be that you're going to go, fall backward, and be broken, snared, and taken.
Yeah, well, the Lord's going to speak to you through a strange lips and a foreign tongue, and he's going to speak to you, and you understanding the words are not going to really be that necessary. I think you're going to get the message. Is kind of what's going on here. Like you guys don't listen real well, but so I'm going to have to speak to you without words, okay? You're not going to be able to understand what this people is saying to you, but I think you're going to understand.
Yeah,
and that's
the nonverbal speech of a sword and spear and a shield. That communicates very, very clearly.
Better to listen than to have to be taught without words. That is, I think, still remains true to this day.
Interestingly, verse 11, "People of strange lips and with a foreign tongue, the Lord will speak to his people." That's quoted by Paul in 1 Corinthians 14. It's in that whole section. He's just finished talking about love as the greatest gift, 1 Corinthians 13. And he's talking about tongues and prophecy and what's best for the congregation to hear. And he quotes from that verse in Isaiah. And his message, he's taking it in his own way to make his own point to the Corinthians. But he says, in the law, and by law here he means just kind of the Old Testament in general, not the Torah. But in the law, he says, it's written, "By people of strange tongues and by the lips of foreigners will I speak to this people. And even then they will not listen to me, says the Lord." And then he says, "Thus tongues are a sign not for believers, but for unbelievers, while prophecy is a sign not for unbelievers, but for believers." And so Paul is using this same kind of idea of foreign tongues being a sign for unbelievers. And so he's picking up the same idea that God is using this foreign speech as a way to talk to unbelievers, just like God used foreign speech as a way to talk to the unbelievers, the rebellious back in in Isaiah's day.
That is him directly saying that Israel is full of unbelievers at this point.
It is, yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what Isaiah and Paul is saying. Okay, now, I said this was a bunch of bad news. We actually have some good news coming up here. In a sense, we're going to hear about a cornerstone. So let's move on to verse 14. Therefore, hear the word of the Lord, you scoffers, who rule this people in Jerusalem. So he's still really addressing mainly the leadership of Jerusalem. Because you have said, quote, we have made a covenant with death, and with Sheol we have an agreement. When the overwhelming whip passes through, it will not come to us, for we have made lies our refuge, and in falsehood we have taken shelter. So because they've said that, therefore, thus says the Lord, behold, I am the one who has laid as a foundation in Zion a stone, a tested stone, a precious cornerstone of a sure foundation. Whoever believes will not be in haste. And I will make justice the measuring line, and righteousness the plumb line. And hail will sweep away the refuge of lies, and waters will overwhelm the shelter. And then your covenant with death will be annulled, and your agreement with Sheol will not stand, when the overwhelming scourge passes through, and you will be beaten down by it. I'm going to stop there. That was taking us through verse 18. So back to the beginning of this, verse 14. God addresses the scoffers, the rulers in Jerusalem, and he begins by this kind of great rhetorical move. He says, because you have said, we've made a covenant with death, and we've made lies our refuge, and in falsehood we have taken shelter. So this is I don't know if this is the technical term for it, but this rhetorical move is sometimes called a mock quotation. This isn't actually what, of course, the Israelites were saying. They weren't saying, hey, we've made lies our refuge, and we're going to find shelter in falsehood. Of course, that's not what they said. They basically have said, if this historical context is right, we're going to make a covenant, and we're going to make an agreement. We're going to sign a pact with Egypt, and we're going to turn to them, and they're going to help us. We're going to ally ourselves with them so that when the Assyrians come, we're going to have help. They're going to team up with us, and together we're going to beat the enemy. They're going to be our refuge. They're going to be our shelter. Now, when the Lord quotes their words, he just kind of switches them around. He has a mock quotation which he recast their words to make them sound negative or foolish. So their agreement is nothing but a covenant with death, and the protection they think they are seeking in that is not going to happen because they're taking refuge in lies and falsehood. But then he says in verse 16, this is the agreement that they make. This is where they're seeking refuge and shelter. Well, I've already done something that they can take refuge in. I've already done something that they can shelter in, and that is I've taken this stone. It's a tested stone. It's a precious cornerstone. I mean, it's a rock solid foundation, and I've built upon this. And the measuring line is justice, and the plumb line is righteousness. So you kind of have your vertical and your horizontal there. Measuring line horizontal, plumb line vertical. I've built something. I've laid this foundation stone in Zion, and therefore, if you're looking for refuge and shelter, I've already given it to you. You don't have to go looking somewhere else and making covenants with what's going to end up being death and Sheol to you. And it's not going to protect you at all. In fact, it's going to be swept away, this refuge of lies and this shelter that you have made and this covenant with death. All of that is going to be wiped away, but you have a better option. Basically, you can do one of two things. You can either build your hope, your confidence, your protection on lies, or to pick up the imagery from Jesus, on sand, or you can build it on a foundation stone, which God himself has laid, which God himself has built. And this is, you could take this a number of different ways, all of which are kind of part of the complete theological package. God's promise of Zion being his city, God's promise of the Davidic throne always being there and God raising up a son of David. All of this is leading us really to its ultimate fulfillment. And this is quoted numerous times in the New Testament, where the foundation, the stone, the tested stone, the precious cornerstone is Christ himself. He is the sure foundation upon which we can build.
Yeah, I mean, this is, Jesus picks up this language, Paul picks up this language, like, yes, of course, Peter picks up this language in his epistles, like, this is, of course, the language of Christ is this cornerstone. I mean, he's the one who's been tested and found true. I mean, this is the corner, this is the sure foundation. But the thing that's interesting about this, besides that, is that every covenant you make, so they're talking about a covenant with death and Sheol, but which is really just a covenant with other powers, other peoples. What is true is that every covenant that you make, regardless of who it's with, is ultimately a covenant with death. There is only one covenant with life, and you can't make it. He's already made it, and so you either rest in a covenant already made for you. Because I mean, this is how God's covenants work. It's how it worked with Abraham. This is how it works at the Passover when Jesus is talking about a new covenant. This is a one-sided deal when God's making covenants, because like you're terrible and like He wouldn't entrust any portion of it to you. And so and this is just that example. Like when you make covenants and agreements and alliances and promises, like you're always making these with death and hell. This is the end of all of those things. But there is like one sure covenant that's already been made, and for whatever reason you refuse to just rest in that one. You think that there's some better promise, some better security out there, and there's just not. Yeah,
that's a great way to put it. And all of the agreements, are agreements with covenants with death, because they ultimately all rest upon our own efforts.
Yeah.
And it wasn't any different in Isaiah's day. I mean, we can talk in terms of, trying to achieve salvation by works. That's very New Testament language. Well, the same thing was happening with Israel. The works that they were trying to build their salvation on was not trusting in God's promises, not trusting in the one who himself had laid this foundation in Zion. And instead, they go running off to the Babylonians, or they go running off to the Egyptians, or running off to whoever it might be. They're always seeking security in what I can do, the covenants that I can make. And ultimately, all, of course, as you said, all these lead to death. The only life and security is found in God's covenant that He makes.
Yeah, and what's great is that what Christ does on the cross is he. Because you might be like, what am I going to do with all these covenants that I've made that are covenants with death? What's going to, I mean, they're covenants after all. Like, what about all these false promises and alliances that I've made? And Christ comes along and says, well, I mean, at the cross, like, I'm going to annul every covenant with death that you ever made, every agreement with hell that you've ever entered into. All of that is going to be annulled in my work.
Yeah. Burned to ashes at the cross. Yeah, very good. So I think we can just wrap up here with a couple more verses. So verse 19, as often as it passes through, it will take you. Morning by morning will pass through, by day and by night. This is talking about this scourge, this destruction that's going to wipe out all of the false promises and the false covenants. I love the image in verse 20. For the bed is too short to stretch oneself on,
I know
and the covering
this.
Too narrow to wrap oneself in. I mean, I'm a little bit taller than average. Dan, you're very much taller than average. And I think you've even told me before, it doesn't matter how big the bed is, you still can't completely stretch yourself out.
No. I was in a hotel not too long ago. I was at a basketball, like a college basketball thing for my daughter. And I had to spend the night down there, and she was staying in the dorm, so I was in a hotel room by myself. So I got just one king, and I just slept on that sucker diagonally. That was pretty good.
Smart. You finally could stretch yourself out.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but just imagine yourself, whoever is listening, imagine like you're on like a little kid's bed and you got half a blanket. Well, that's the image. Yeah? The bed's too short. You can't stretch yourself out. The covering is too narrow. You can't. There's no comfort. There's no security. There's nothing but just discomfort and unease. You're not getting any sleep whatsoever. And that, is an inappropriate image for what's going to happen if you put your confidence in something other than God's work. It's a short bed. It's a half blanket. Don't go there.
Yeah, that's a bad covenant. Well, I guess we can leave it there with a short bed and a kid's blanket. That's not what you want. You got a better option for sure in the tested Cornerstone. All right. Well, we will leave it there. We will pick it up again next episode. Chad, I will see you then.
See you then.